Welcome to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
Kia ora koutou, and welcome to another episode of the Thrive TV show. I'm Lauren Parsons, your host, and I'm thrilled today to be joined by Filipo Levi, and we're talking about leading effective change. So welcome, Filipo. Great to have you here.
Hey, Lauren, Tulafale-Orator and kia ora koutou. It's great to be on your your show on TV.
Yeah, fantastic to have you here. So today we're going to be talking a bit about psychological foundations for change, like why humans respond in the way we do when we're faced with change and how to navigate that resistance. We're going to talk a bit about emotional intelligence for change leaders and also some leadership strategies for successful change, how to craft compelling change vision and engage and motivate teams through transformation. So I think this is so relevant. I'm constantly working with people that are going through change or experiencing change or just coming out of change. So very cool indeed. So before we dive into that, I just want to do my this and that questions with you, if that's all right, Filipo. So first of all, tell me, dogs or cats?
That's an easy one. Dog.
Dog. You're a dog person. Nice. Very cool. Tell me, beachfront or mountaintop?
Beachfront.
Okay, nice. At the beach with the dog, probably. Tell me, chocolate or cake?
Chocolate cake.
Bit of both. Chocolate and cake. Nice. Cool.
Bit of both. Bit of both.
Okay. And tell me, would you rather have a week with no internet or a week without your car? No internet or no car?
No car.
Okay, nice. Very cool. Fantastic. So Filipo Levi is a former international rugby captain for Manu Samoa. He played 12 years of professional rugby. In 2011, he was bestowed with Samoan chief Tulafale-Orator speaking title of Mulitalo from the village of Lano in Samoa. The Samoan chief system has been in place for over 3,000 years, and the title is one that's given to those who lead by serving. So that's amazing. He graduated from the University of Otago with a bachelor's and master's degree, and he's really passionate about helping and collaborating with leaders and working with businesses to help them develop their leadership skills. And I know that you specialise especially in leading through change. So tell me, to start with, perhaps just tell me, what is it you love most about what you're doing now, Filipo?
I think for myself, I love working with people. I love working with leaders and their teams, and able to empower them, inspire them to leading through change and through their leadership or through their business. So it's one thing I've always wanted to do after I finished rugby, and it's been probably 10 year. It's been probably 10 years since I've left the game, and I guess the whole the whole topic for today is about this whole change, and it's quite a personal topic, but it's also one I can help others with what I've gone through through the changes through my own sort of the psychological sort of mindset, changing that from from using a lot of principles from sports, through rugby, sports and high performance, and then crossing it over to what I'm doing now with leaders and businesses. So yeah, so it's a passion of mine to help them and but also take them through these steps.
Yeah, fantastic. And so I know you said you want to talk a bit about the psychological foundations for change, and it's such a human thing, isn't it, that we do naturally have this resistance to change. So tell me a bit about the human response. How do humans naturally respond to change? Tell us a bit about that.
I guess when I look back at my own career, rugby career, so the whole concept of change from going from a rugby player to also coming into the world of from the 9 to 5 to 9 to 9 to being in the real world, because for 12 odd years being in a bubble, that's all we have as a sports athlete. So once that bubble pops and you come out into the sunshine or rain or snow or wherever you are in the world, it does cause a lot of trauma. So and through my personal journey, and I went through a bit of a spiral.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of what was happening here, because you don't know what's happening to you. So, I've had all the psychologists take us through years of about a decade of training through high performance, through going from the blue head to the red head and back to the blue, that's calming your nerves or not being too anxious. So that's really well known in the sports field. So coming myself was really challenging, because you're able to learn lots about yourself, and also about what you go through as a person. And one thing, when you do go through change, or go from one career to another, you really need to start to look at it as a process.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess when you're looking at the whole the psychological sort of impact of humans, it could be the old, the well-known fight, flight, or freeze response, right? So that's really well known. So we look at certain ways of when we face challenges. How do we see it? Do we see it as something to fear about? Is this something to freeze, or is this something that we need to find flow as a human? So a lot of my insights come from asking for help. Simply asking for help. So a lot of people who are sort of stuck in their own ways, very fixed mindset. I will always do it this way, and that's it. The old should be right, but it's not should be right. It needs to be right. It needs to be right, and the only way we can get that is reaching out for help. And I guess for my work, I've worked with a lot of leaders. I've worked with the likes of John Kirwan, Sir John Kirwan, and also his work, and also his journey through change, through his depression. And he's been quite open with talking to me about his story. And I'm like, wow, yeah, I knew that of you, but I didn't realize how passionate he is now to help with well-being with people at work now. So there's a whole range of research about the whole the psychological safety in workplaces as well. So now that's because now, since COVID, or during COVID, we're all locked up. Everyone was locked up, so everyone had to adapt and to innovate a lot of the workplaces and their businesses. So, and through a lot of changes, we all went through it. We all went through the stay home, exercise in your own area, and it was really. It was quite a fearful time for many people, because we didn't know what was happening tomorrow. We didn't know what the plan for what was happening. So there's a lot of fear out there as well. So, but also many people were able to see this as an opportunity. They were able to see that, hey, I can go online, and I'm sure you've been on this for many years, Lauren. I know you've been even before the lockdowns. You were doing this for many years. So not many people were able to look at at adapting their business model, and a lot of them have suffered for the consequences, and they let many people go from the businesses. And I know that through personal experiences, through many friends who were let go of businesses because they had to downsize really quickly. They're sort of losing a lot of money. So I guess change is a big topic, and there's a whole, as I mentioned before, a whole lot of research in it. So I'm not a scientist or anything, but I've gone through it. I've gone through personal change myself, and also to helping businesses with change in their own team, but also looking at the impacts of what's happening at this minute with climate change, and the government's coming, for the next election. So there's a lot of things that are happening, and for leaders to understand, how can they go through this, and how can they take their people with them through this change.
Yeah. And I think you're right that so many people have, as you say, had to navigate so much through the lockdowns, through COVID, through constant change and uncertainty. And it's really hard for us as human beings, isn't it? We love that, constant certainty, and our brains are always scanning the world looking for regular patterns, isn't it? And when we don't see them, I always talk about how we don't see those regular patterns, your body responds at a visceral level, as you say, with fight, freeze. Our logic and our power and reasoning shut down, don't they? And it's interesting seeing, ongoing change that's affecting people. So perhaps can you tell us a bit more about, your story, and how did you cope with change? What were the key things or key tools that you used, or key things that you learned about dealing with that change?
Yeah, as it comes down to simply how you face it is your attitude, how you see this, how you approach it, how you able to, putting on my my sports background hat on. You're looking at sort of how do we adapt to what's happening in front of you? On a rugby field, we've got to adapt to the opposition, what they're doing. So we're constantly adapting to certain situations on the field. So for me, when things were not happening, where things were not so going to plan, it was only just just me, because I had no team, there was no other sort of help there for many athletes, and this is a decade ago. We've got better in that in New Zealand. We've got better to help athletes with their well-being, especially with the whole post-COVID. And so I guess it was a personal shock, but also one thing I knew was to reach out. But one thing I had in mind was, when I was going through that, from being a former to a post athlete, was to keep certain habits, my certain habits in place. So a lot of those habits was to be physically fit, to keep moving. So I knew if I just stood still and just did nothing, I know that would cause a lot of sort of mental stress. And I can see it on my skin color. I could just, you could just feel it. So I had to sort of make sure that I do my own regular training, so that I don't just completely let things go. It's only things what you can control, right? Yeah. So not things you can't control. So what can you control as a person? So I had to really think about, what can I control right now? Okay, I can run. Okay, well, I can run sometimes, but a fun, nice field, sports field, that's great. Join a gym, I went to join a gym. So really, that was really key for me, and change was making sure I was able to keep physically fit, because again, being physically fit can also help us mentally, right? So this whole the holistic approach of health, which we're only just knowing now, which has been understood for many years from many other cultures. But I think in the Western sense, it's now, we're now starting to bridge the gap between the mind and body. And that's what I knew through a lot of my studies, but also understanding what can I control, and then so pretty much going through that process, there were a few people who did reach out. So, and when you do leave a certain place of certainty to somewhere which is uncertain, it's your trusted few friends who always keep in touch. The ones that who are always there for you, the ones that bled for you, and if you're looking at a sports context, who are always there asking how you were, that's all, just a kind word. So there were certain people who reached out, and I was able to come out of my shell, to burst my bubble, so to actually go out and reach out, and start to go through this journey of change. And through that, over a few months, I was able to see a person through a careers advisor, and through that, another process, I was able to have a plan, create a plan. Because most things, I do like to have a plan, something there, a goal, but also a plan where I can see steps which leads to my passions, or my more so interest. And back then it was whether I wanted. So out of the process through the careers advisor was, you could be involved in the educational industry, or you can be a speaker. So I had those about 10 years ago. I wanted to become a speaker like Tony Robbins, all these gurus, I thought that was awesome, man. Because when you're playing rugby, you need that motivational, talk when things are down, when you're losing the game, when you're in the middle of England's winter. I was there for a number of years, you're got to keep yourself motivated. So, and what I chose was to get involved in education. Because I asked, so which one will make money faster? And so the careers advisor, well, probably education. But if you want to become a teacher, you need to study another 2 years. I said, oh, no, thanks. So where else can I work in? And then that led me down to working in sort of private training establishments, working in South Auckland with a lot of adult learners for a couple of years. And then I was able to go from there to working in schools, to charter schools, which was a new concept about 8 years ago that came out under National and Act, which I was quite passionate about, helping a lot of those communities. So, and again, constantly after 4 years, I left nearly 5 years ago to run my own speaking training business, which I'm doing now.
Yeah, it's great. And so, yeah, it was such a pleasure to meet you through the Professional Speakers Association, which
That's
was
great.
so lovely just to get to know, so many other fantastic speakers. So let's focus a bit more on, what you're doing in terms of change leadership within businesses. Tell me about when there's a change going on, how do you advise leaders to help navigate that resistance and really foster buy-in for that change that's coming in?
Probably one client stood out was a bank. I won't say who the bank was, but it was interesting because they wanted to the bank wanted to change their teams from being sort of a low performing team to being a high performing team. Mm-hmm. And as most teams is, you're going to have your top 1% of high performers, right? You're going to have your Dan Carters, you're going to have your Richie McCaws, they're always going to have those X factor players. But in every organization, you got to sort of try and move that, that needle. You got to try to move that the whole team, sort of, even the bottom 20%. You got to sort of move them into the middle, right? If you're looking at a normal graph. So working with them, I did about 3-4 months of work with them, and it was really interesting because a lot of it came down to them being quite resistant to change. I sense it's always been done this way. We are the best team in New Zealand. Why should we care about those people from South Island or the other branches? We are actually holding the ship. We're the ones that So I had some interesting conversation. I had to have some really quite some courageous conversations with them as well. So you're trying to make them uncomfortable, and doing that can get a lot of people really, they can be quite fearful. But also you also have a lot of a lot of ego in there as well. They've been here for a lot of time, and so you're dealing with that. So I was going from that to the leader, to the junior managers, and I was talking to them about the changes, what's happening over the trainings and through the conversations. I guess over the next sort of 4 or 5 months, I heard from one of the workers, and he said, he messaged me and said, hey, there's been a lot of change in the team who you work with us, and he said it hasn't been easy, and there was a few people that got let go, so and it wasn't me, it wasn't me at all. So, but what I wanted to do was to plant the seed in terms of change, and a lot of conversations a few years ago was talking about having a growth mindset. How do you have this growth mindset in yourself to be able to reach your targets? To be able to talk to your clients in a way, to serve them through the products they have. So, because all businesses are wanting different advice or technology to help them with their business. So the bank was able to provide that and serve them. So, but there was quite a challenging bit at the beginning, because I was given pretty much the objectives. This is the outcome we want, and I said, wow, this is interesting. It's going to be really interesting. And I think they were, at the end of that piece of work, they were pretty happy with where they were able to go. And this was just before the COVID lockdown a couple of years ago. So, wow. So that's sort of one case I've worked with a couple of teams. I guess the next sort of the current piece of work I'm working on is working with another team who are looking to change how they communicate. So you're looking at more dealing with clients on when you're out in the field. So there's been a lot of issues of conflict, but also how to, and also so able to help them with that as well. So it's been a couple of months now I worked there. I'm working back with them tomorrow. So it's been really good seeing a bit of change. I've been having a lot of positive responses from the junior manager. So that's been really, really positive. Again, it's a lot of work between the leaders and the workers on the ground, or the supervisors I'm dealing with. So that's been quite an eye opener, but also quite, you feel quite excited for them because it's they're wanting to grow their business.
Yeah. And I think, the key around communication is so important, isn't it? I know you talked before about wanting to talk a bit about emotional intelligence and communication, and just reminds me of, I can recall when I was doing my postgrad studies, and just one of my favorite classes that we had was an HR class, and we had this amazing lecturer who really got us to interact and work together as a group of students and discuss things rather than just sitting there and having information sort of fired at us. And I still kind of recall this experiment he got us to do. He had two people face each other with this board between them, and the experiment was that one person had to try and describe to the other person how to lay out these certain shapes. But the thing that they didn't realize was that one person's shapes, they might have had like a blue triangle and a yellow circle and a green square. But on the other side, they actually had different colored shapes. So they had no blue triangle, they had a red triangle, and they had no, whatever I'd said just before, green square, they had an orange square. And the rule was that the person talking was like a one-way conversation, and the person that was having to try and put this puzzle together, they couldn't ask questions and they couldn't say anything. And it was just so interesting watching from the outside, because the rest of us were all kind of around the room looking in, and this person was saying, okay, so put the blue triangle in the top right corner, and the other person's just looking at them going, this is ridiculous, I don't even have a blue triangle. And you could see over time how they got more and more fed up, and they just, initially they were trying to make sense of it and trying to do something they thought was maybe approximately right. But over time, because the communication that was coming through from their point of view seemed pointless and seemed unhelpful, and that they weren't able to have any input, they just got totally disengaged. And it was just such an amazing experiment, I guess. And afterwards, obviously, they looked at it, and both from the leadership side, the person trying to lead this person to guide them through the activity, they finally understood where the breakdown was in communication. But it's always stuck with me to this day, because I think it's just such an example of how, I guess, sometimes people feel through change, that they feel not like they're not being listened to, even though that's not what leaders want. So give me some practical ideas. What are the key things that you share with leaders about communication? How do we do it better? How do we do it well?
I think it really comes down to the whole aspect of your emotional intelligence. There's this whole concept of emotional intelligence, but also how you balance that with our intellect, or IQ versus EQ. So and I deal with leaders who are really high on IQ, but really low on EQ. And that's really tough. That's the challenge, because if they just really focused on numbers or focusing on outcomes, results, that's great. But if you don't bring your team on board, that's going to slow down the whole process. And usually leaders who are quite visual, they're visualizing, they want to get this and this. It's really challenging getting them to hey, let's start to balance this. Let's start to think about your team. This whole concept of having more empathy for others, that can be a challenge for a lot of leaders, because again, we can put a mask on, go to work, and think, oh no, this is my business, it's my way, the highway, But things have changed. And in terms of leadership has to change, and I feel there's a sense of us going back to the way it was, sort of pre-COVID. We're sort of going back to those old ways. But I think now empathy is a huge skill that can be learned. Going back to growth mindset, it can be learned. Many people who think, no, we can't learn this. I've always done it this way. Well, that's you're really now going into the track of being quite a fixed mindset sort of leader. You're going on the work or carrot week, right?
Yeah.
Work on growth mindset. So I get the challenge on growth mindset. How do you be more empathetic? How can you how can you adapt your leadership, but also how do you able to be open more to listening? Something you mentioned before.
Yeah.
Because and I always mention that, hey, God gave us 2 ears and one mouth. So listen twice, speak once. So where many leaders, they just speak without actually stopping and actually hey, hold, what's really happening? What am I hearing that's not being said? Or, what is not being said that I can sense, sort of thing. So I think for many leaders who are so busy dealing with the business, when they when they don't come down to where everyone else is to figure out what's happening, and trying to listen to everyone, to be that leader, to really empathize, and also be that servant leader. Go back to the servant model of leader that goes, that wants to be with those who are, from the ground up, through the business. So, and that's what I've seen as a lot of leaders in my work. I've worked with a lot of CEOs who are really successful. There's a lot of good feedback from the workers I'm dealing with, the supervisors, managers, saying, yeah, he's great. He's always on the tools. He's always helping out on the desk. He's going, he's always cleaning up, up himself or herself, or these are the leaders that we need in this current age, I guess. So, so you have emotional challenges as leaders, which can be learned. Being self-aware as a leader of who's around you, but that's whole aspect of your empathy for others, and also listening twice.
Yeah, so good. Yeah, and I think everyone's heard that, two ears, one mouth, but it's easy to hear it and to know it. It's much more challenging sometimes to actually do it and to actually ask great questions, the power of a beautiful question, to be curious. And I love that leading with empathy. That's so key. Nice. Another thing I know that you talk about in your change leadership is having a clear vision, inspiring people and compelling them with a clear vision. So tell us about why that's important.
I think for me, it's really important to have that vision. So for many businesses who are going through change, how can you have a really compelling vision for not only for yourself, but also how can you have that so that your team can understand where you want to go? Because most leaders will probably have it in their heads, but not really written out, or they don't sort of verbalize it. But no, it's getting better, which is a lot of the work I've seen through businesses I've worked in. But also, able to visualize where you are in terms of your business in the next 3, 5, 7, 10 years. And it was a hard thing to do during the lockdown. I was like, okay, can I visualize another year from now? I can. Another year from now, we're going to be free, open, and in the sun. A year later, we're still locked in.
Yeah.
I was like, oh. So it's you sort of laugh it off, but there's times we're able to understand what everyone's going through. So I guess now there's a important time now where businesses can actually start to really think ahead. Where can they take their people? How can they grow their business? How can they develop their products, or able to move into different markets. And what I've seen is a leader that's able to actually visualize, but also to have goals, because most things, you have those big hairy goals. A lot of businesses I've worked in, they say, we've got a big hairy goal. Okay, great. What's that? Okay, cool. How do we get there? So a goal can be like a vision, but also the goal is like it's almost steps to get there, right? So so I think visualizing something that you're really passionate about, but also where to see the business, because leaders are there to be the to able to see what others cannot see. Where your junior manager and other managers can deal with the day-to-day stuff, but I believe CEOs, leaders are looking ahead of the next opportunity. So having a vision which is compelling, which is also motivating for the workers, and to grow different markets, I believe is really important. And in the work I've done with some businesses, I've seen the growth. A couple of them, what I'm dealing with now, they're adding more people to the business. They need more workers because the CEO wants to grow it. So I'm thinking, wow, this is great. That means there could be more work. So which is always good, because you're able to see the work they're doing in the community, but also the impact of them serving.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, as you're hearing you talking about a vision, it reminds me as well. I've just recently brought out my
I've seen that.
Yeah, Thriving Leaders, Thriving Teams, which if you're listening to the podcast, you won't see, but I'm just holding it up here for those watching. And it reminds me, because as part of this, you probably haven't seen this, Levi, but Filippo, but I talk
Yeah.
about this, that leaders need to lead like a master gardener, that you can't force a plant to grow, but master gardeners know how to cultivate the right environment. And actually, out of this model, I've got 12 keys, and the number one is to have that clear vision. And that's like light. Plants need light to grow, just like humans. We need that clear vision to inspire us, to enable us. And I think, especially through change, having that clear vision and being able to articulate it, the story behind it, get people behind you and motivated, that's going to draw people together and hopefully build empathy, but motivate them to, give their best. And I talk about a whole lot of other things, you've got to give water and fertilizer, you've got to give praise, you've got to give corrective feedback and a whole range of other things, but having that clear vision is so key. So yeah, I love that. You also talked about, sorry, go.
So I think with as a leader, when you're going through that, for your own your vision of the company, it's really important to engage with different aspects of the people in the business. So, because not all of them will get it straight away. Probably all your fans will get it. There's a certain percentage of people. Yep, they'll love it. There's also those, or they're not too sure. They are, they're always questioning why are you doing this? Why is this compelling? Why we can just stay here and it don't change? So I think it's the leader has to have different certain types of skills to engage their people. So you're dealing with different personalities. You got introverts, you got the extroverts, you got the omniverts. You've got all this different range of personalities you got to deal with, but also the diversity of different cultures as well. You're getting more people from overseas, from different Asian countries who have who also from Pacific Islands, but also from Europe. So a lot of businesses are becoming more, more diverse, but also not in the way we look and also how we speak, but also our thinking capacity. How different people think. And that's really important for businesses. So a leader is really key to engage them, to bring them on board on board their vision, and how to motivate them, how to get their commitment. It can take a while.
So for people can you give some, maybe some practical ideas of what are the keys that you talk to leaders about? How do they motivate their team? How do you actually, master that key to motivation?
If I had the question, the answer to that question, goodness me, I'll be a billionaire. So no, I guess that's an ongoing process. I think it's ongoing for a lot of leaders, because they're also working on their own sort of work-ons, as I mentioned. They have their own strengths and work-ons, but also the opportunities for them to grow and to understand the people in the business. But so I think as most things for how do you understand people, how do you engage? It comes down to empathy, but also comes down to knowing them personally. How do you, rather than just ask, hey, how are you? How's your weekend?
Yeah.
Actually, just dig a bit deeper. You don't want to be all fake about it. You don't want to go around, hey, how are you? Oh, yeah, how's your weekend? You got to build that relationship first. And so you got to be really careful as a leader. It doesn't come out as being inauthentic, but also they want you to be the leader. They want you to be a leader, take a charge, but also have a side of you where, hey, this person does have a empathetic side, because people are quite shocked when leaders are quite assertive, who are quite aggressive. Some people say they're aggressive, but they're probably more assertive, really. So when they start to become empathetic, people become, oh, that's something's changed with that person, with their so, but it's small steps. It's small steps. So I believe motivation starts with the leader, but also understanding their people, understanding what's really why they're there. The whole why. The whole why concept. Of why they're there at work. Are they there to make money? Are they there to provide for their families? Are they there to provide for the other families? So there's a whole layer of of things you can do as a leader. But I'll do that. I'll get to know them personally as well, and they can start off with again weekly meetups. It could be a barbecue. I don't know, it could be free coffees in the morning. Don't know. There's a whole range of different strategies you can use, but I guess it comes down to those one-on-one conversations. I think there are conversations to get the water. When you're having a break, just talking to someone. There's that chit chat that that a lot of people have missed because of being locked down for so long. Now they're chit chatting all the time. But I guess those conversations are really important because you're able to gauge where people are and also look them in the eye, which can be challenging for a lot of cultures, because I guess in the Pacific culture, in Asian culture, they looking in a person's eye can be quite. You are disrespecting the leader, whereas in the Western way, looking in the eyes is about trust, about building trust. So again, you're also dealing with that aspect as well. So as a leader, how do you adapt that style? How can you be more culturally intelligent as a leader?
That's good. Yeah, both emotionally intelligent, self-aware, culturally intelligent.
Yeah,
I think you're right that motivation there's not just one answer. If there would be amazing, but it's about getting to know your people and understanding what's their why, what drives them. So fantastic. So thank you so much for your time today. Gosh, we just talked all around, but I really appreciate you sharing a bit of your story, and I'm sure there's a lot more layers to that of all the change that you've had to face and go through, and great hearing some of your tips around dealing with change. So if people did want to find out more or connect with you, Filipo, how do they do that?
They can connect on LinkedIn, so connect on there. I'm on there. So, and also you can go to my website, www.filipolevi.com, filipolevi.com.
Yeah.
So you can reach me there.
Perfect. Yeah, and all of the links will be down below at the show. So make sure, if you haven't already, head over to thrivetvshow.com and you'll have all of the show notes and the links down below. So it's been fantastic talking to you. Just to close, just invite you to share, and if there's one final thing you want to share with our listeners today, what would that be, Filipo?
Okay, I'll share a Samoan a quote, or a Samoan proverb, which goes like this:
Beautiful.
"Ole ala I le pule o le tautua." Okay, "Ole ala I le pule o le tautua." The pathway to leadership is through service.
Beautiful. I love it. That so describes you. That the first time that I met Filipo in person, was at a full day's training day, and he was there sitting and leaning and listening, as we all were. Fantastic to always do that as a group of speakers. And then he spent hours setting up and then hours packing down the amazing, awards dinner that we had. So real servant leadership. And I know you do a whole lot more than just that. So thank you for joining me today. It's been such a pleasure to chat with you.
That's been awesome, Lauren. And thank you for allowing me to be on here and to add value to you, and also to the TV, and also to many of your listeners and your clients. So thank you very much, Lauren.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone's got lots out of it. So thanks so much to everyone for tuning in. That's been another episode of the Thrive TV show. Go out and thrive.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.